Michael's apartment in Kingston took them onto the South Circular, heading against the weight of traffic which was flowing back into London at the end of the day. Michael turned on the radio news, and their conversation on the journey home alternated between what had happened at the care home and the events on Waterloo Bridge. "I can't imagine what the people who were on the bridge must be thinking now," said Alison. The BBC reporter had been interviewing witnesses, several of whom were saying how everything had happened so quickly that no one could have done anything to prevent it. "Isn't it amazing how you can just be minding your own business, having a nice day out, and then fate puts you in a situation which is going to affect you for the rest of your life?" Michael thought about what she had said. It is amazing, but it's also amazing how people like those witnesses react as though something has happened to them, when in fact it's happened to the children and their families. It seems to me that everyone is encouraged to consider how they feel about stuff themselves, when what they should be feeling is sympathy for the people who've been affected directly. "The bystanders have been affected directly," said Alison. Her reaction seemed to Michael to be more vehement than the situation justified. Everyone they ever meet from this day onwards will have in the back of their minds the question why they didn't act more quickly to stop what was happening. And despite what they're saying right now, they'll also be asking themselves every day of their lives whether they could have done more to prevent it. What happened today will affect them forever. And all because chance put them in the wrong place at the wrong time. She turned towards Michael, apparently anxious that he should take on board what she was saying. "Do you see what I'm getting at?" "I do. I see that. In fact, as you pointed out, it could so easily have been us who found ourselves in precisely that situation." He paused. "I don't think I've seen a report of exactly what time all this happened, but we were not far from there this morning. Half an hour either way and we might have been witnesses ourselves." The couple drove in silence before Michael spoke again. "I wonder if what the doctor said might be true, that Rose had been watching the news reports before we got there and was traumatized. I've never seen her like that. It was shocking." He took his left hand from the wheel and covered hers. "I'm so sorry that you had that to deal with," he said. "It wasn't at all what I'd had in mind." "What did you have in mind?" "That she would instantly fall in love with you and would quietly take you to one side and tell you what a great bloke I am and how lucky you are to have found me." Alison smiled. "Okay, yes, I see now why you were disappointed. You'd hoped for a scene out of All My Children, and what you got instead was more like something out of the Addams Family." Alison squeezed his hand in return. The traffic was now even heavier and was at a standstill in both directions. Michael pointed out the bright red faces of some of the people who had been all too keen to enjoy the first proper heatwave of the year. Alongside their Vauxhall, but travelling in the opposite direction, an open-topped bright blue BMW contained a family of Mum and Dad in the front and two listless kids strapped into the rear seats. The driver was in his late 30s and clearly had been in the sun for too long. His thinning red hair was streaked across his pate and had done little to protect him, so that the skin covering his skull was pink and freckled. A heavily tattooed forearm decorated with elaborate patterns rested on the door, and was so close that Michael could have touched it. Alison caught the other driver's eye for an instant and saw his expression change from irritation to something like a leer. She looked away quickly before Michael might notice, but just at that moment her boyfriend turned his head and also caught the attention of the stranger. "They want to catch that lunatic and string him up from the fucking bridge," said the man. "That's what I'd do." "Yeah, me too," said Michael. But when both cars had moved on, he turned to Alison. "I hate it when that happens. It's like finding yourself having to agree with racist taxi drivers because you don't want to get into an argument, but you hate yourself afterwards for not disagreeing with a skinhead." Alison smiled and nodded. It was the kind of remark which had attracted her to Michael in the first place, and as they drove along slowly and in silence, she thought about how she had been drawn to him from their very first meeting just 2 months earlier in a wine bar in Brighton. Alison had been on a rare evening out with colleagues from the local travel agency where she had worked since her return from Australia. Michael had come down from London for a stag weekend with a few friends from the TV post-production house where he was a runner. Her attention had been drawn in his direction by the irritating noise of their partying, and one of the women from her own group had suggested that they should make a complaint. But Alison and Michael exchanged glances, and both felt the same tug on an invisible string. He found a reason to break away from his friends, leaving them to continue their adventure into oblivion.